Now, I got saved in 1996. And in 1996, in my salvation, my deliverance was the first time I really, really, really had an experience with the things of God. Now, before then, I was a drug dealer, drug addict, also a certified mechanical contractor for the state of Florida. Still am. And what I considered at that time a happily married man with 2 kids. But yet still didn't have no sense of God. I belonged to a secret organization that based things on the things of the Bible and God. But, because of the action of so many, I finally realized that, that wasn't the perfect example of how to follow the things of God. And so the world and what I was doing in the world literally just kept its course. Basically, still hustling, still clubbing, still running women and smoking dope, selling dope. And at the same time, making money in the mechanical industry. Unfaithful to my wife, had 2 kids. And every day was a real struggle because at that time before I got saved, I had been on crack for about 19 years, marijuana 27 years, smoked cigarettes 27 years, and drank liquor for about 25 years. So needless to say, I was tired of it, but I didn't know how to get out of it. And I thought this was a good time, but then everybody that's been on dope and on crack or whatever the case may be, they realize that after a period of time, you keep on doing the same old thing, you keep on giving. They realize that after a period of time, you keep on doing the same old thing was a headache, a hangover, no money in your pocket, and you done told so many lies that ain't even funny. No money in your pocket. So needless to say, it's something that's under in your heart, you know that you need help. So that was my first introduction to salvation, the fact that I knew I needed help. And I had consulted God in the midst of my sickness, drug addiction, Lord, please take this away. Even to the point where I contemplated suicide. And then I reasoned out of the suicide, whereas I had cocaine on this side, about a half a key. And I had my 9mm on this side. And I said, well, if I'm going to commit suicide, I might as well get high and commit suicide instead of shoot myself because, bullet hurt. But anyway, I decided to go ahead and smoke. And it had to be God because I smoked to the point where I couldn't even inhale. When I put the pipe to my mouth, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't suck in. I couldn't take no air in. But yet still, when I put it down, I was able to breathe. And so I don't know how that phenomenon would even work, but the only thing I know now, it had to be God because I was literally trying to smoke myself to death. And so, after that, but yet still now in the midst of all this, because this, that's why deliverance is so important because, demons well, let's not call them demons because most people get offended when you say demons or you got demons. Let's just say influences. Influences in your life, they don't come just singular. They always come in groups. So like I said, I was an addict, I was running after money. So there's mammon, Then the addiction, that was like pharmakia. And then on top of that, I had a lust demon, I was running the women hard. I was running them. And so, and so that lustful thing was still there. So matter of fact, I ran into an old friend from college. And at the time, she was a pastor, preacher. And, and the lust spirit, she was a nice looking lady. So, the lust spirit said, well, hey, you can get that lady whether she preaches or not. So I ain't have no respect for God. It didn't matter whether she was preaching or not preaching. I had the best dope in the world, best marijuana. And if she just slip up a little bit, hey, it'd be my time. So in other words, I pursued that. Needless to say, now I'm married. 2 kids. And for to go out a preacher that's preaching the gospel. So that's how arrogant and that's how prideful I was. So you go for that right there. You go to try, you do all the little moves and things of that nature. So I thought I was pretty slick. So, she had a little church. So I said, well, I'm a mechanical contractor. I come do some free air conditioning work, So did a few things for her, And then at the time, She was going to a particular place to preach. I said, well, hey, I'm heading down to that place too. I was heading down to go pick up some dope. She was going down there to preach. So I met her down in, I think, Fort Lauderdale. I'm in Fort Lauderdale now. I met her there. And when I got there, she was preaching, and she was preaching, sounding good. And I never heard that type of preaching before. You know, like I said, you heard things of God. You know, I had been married, so you had to say the marriage vow. I got married in the church. But I never heard it, you know, never really paid no attention to it till I ran to find out where she was. She was in a little church. They had a little speaker outside. And man, I heard that she was preaching and just saying some things, talking about deliverance and things of that nature. I didn't know anything about it. So something pulled me out of the car and I went inside. And when I went inside, I saw her preaching. She was laying hands on people. They were falling all out and all that kind of stuff. And I'm looking at it thinking it's some kind of scheme, you know, saying she ready to take some people money. You know, because I know when I knew her from the past, you know, we was in Tallahassee, you know, selling dope and all that kind of, but I guess, you know, she had changed. But anyway, went in there, saw it, and even the children would fall down, so I thought it was a joke. But anyway, afterwards, I got a chance to talk with her, you know, so I got that plan. Because I see what I want to do, what I want to do. That's my purpose, you know. I had a little marijuana, cocaine pocket in my pocket, just in case you want to revert back. But anyway, you know, just been talking. And then that's when, you know, I wanted to ask her, because I know she come from the streets. I said, well, is this God thing real? You know, and then she said, yeah, it's real. And I said, okay. And then so, you know, mine, you know, believe me, you know, my eyes on them legs go so I want to try to figure, you know, when you know, just like anybody trying to get next to a lady or a lady trying to get next to a man, you try to find a common ground of something that they would like. So I say, well, hey, you know, how do you get like you? So, you know, I want to get that common ground. So you say, well, you have to get saved. I said, oh, hey, well, it's time for me to get saved then. How do you do that? And so she led me to sinner's prayer. So, you know, I was a patient kind of fellow, so I just figured I'd just go in and get that little thing, sit and talk for a while, ask a few questions about the things in the church. And so, you know, I said the sinner's prayer, so I left. So I felt like I had planted a seed. And you know, so I think the following week she's back in the same area preaching. So I went down. That's when my first encounter with seeing the demon being cast out. And I was in this little church, man. This little girl was sitting next to me through the whole service. And it was time for prayer. And the little girl came up, and she went to praying for the little girl. And that little girl started pulling her hair out of her head and screaming. And I was looking at the little girl, you know, saying, how in the world is this? Because this little girl just got through sitting beside me. And I'm saying, was this inside this little girl sitting beside me? Mind you, now I don't go to church. So I'm looking around now, everybody in the church, but what is everybody else